This is not great. The implications of the potential new CBA deal, if they took the deal right now on the Indiana Fever roster. And I did a video earlier. We talked about things like the implications of a delayed season on the Indiana Fever, etc. This is a bigger issue. This is a personnel.
That look right there. That's the face of someone slowly realizing their championship window could be crashing closed before it ever truly opened. Robin Lundberg just released a piece breaking down how the new CBA will affect Indiana. And Indiana Fever fans need to grasp what's ahead, because the numbers tied to this roster don't merely appear troubling. They seem downright impossible.
Put Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham on the outside of the Fever looking in. It could cause them to have to go to other teams. And we're talking about two massive fan favorites. And I'm just going to say it. What do you do here? What do you do? Are you going to lose two players for one? Because that's what it's...
Two fan favorites, two vital rotation pieces, one max contract. And based on the salary cap projections, that formula simply doesn't add up. Lexi Hull is starting games, while Sophie Cunningham serves as the sixth player off the bench, delivering instant energy and reliable three-point shooting. Both are adored by the fan base, and both could be gone after this season. Not because the Indiana Fever don't value them, but because they literally won't have the cap space to keep them once Kelsey Mitchell inks her new deal. Here's what makes this especially brutal. The Fever just invested an entire season in building chemistry, refining rotations, and shaping a clear identity. They finally have something special taking form in Indiana. Now, the new CBA structure threatens to rip it apart.
It will be a challenge for the franchise to keep its core together going forward. This stems from looming changes to the WNBA salary structure and the reality that cornerstone pieces Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston will eventually move on from their rookie contracts. It's my understanding Aaliyah Boston's salary is going to go way up, too. And that could end up being a real issue. That first factor that will have immediate implications as soon as the league and the Players Association finally come to terms on the new CBA. This is because salaries for players are set to skyrocket in the new deal, potentially creating...
Let's break down the actual figures, because this is where things become concrete. The proposed CBA sets a salary cap of $5.65 million per team. Max salaries rise to $1 million. The average player's salary climbs toward $500,000. Now, calculate that against Indiana's core trio. Kelsey Mitchell, entering free agency, is expected to command a supermax. That's $1 million immediately allocated. Caitlin Clark remains on her rookie deal, but even that scale contract occupies cap space. Aaliyah Boston is heading into the final year of her rookie contract, and her salary will surge once she becomes eligible for an extension. Those three players alone absorb a significant portion of the $5.65 million cap. What remains to complete the rest of the roster? Less than the average player salary. And that's the issue, because Lexi Hull isn't an average player. She's a starter who delivers elite 3-and-D production. Sophie Cunningham isn't average either. She's an established veteran who brings playoff experience and clutch shooting. Both will command above-average deals on the open market.
Do a video on it because some of the things in there we've already talked about at great length. But once I saw how this is going to break down, the implications of it on the Fever, I was like, yeah, let's do a video on it. Broke down the numbers in the league's existing proposal, citing the Fever as an example given Kelsey Mitchell's free agency and likely supermax contract salary. As Constable noted, if Mitchell were to receive the new max, her contract combined with...
Annie Costabile at Front Office Sports ran these projections, and the takeaway is unavoidable. If Kelsey Mitchell lands the supermax, which, as a free agent, she almost certainly will, Indiana Fever are forced into an impossible decision. They can match offers for Lexi Hull, since she's a restricted free agent, but matching an offer means committing money they simply don't have for depth. Sophie Cunningham is unrestricted, and she has already said publicly that she wants a more secure contract. Can Indiana provide that kind of security when they're piecing together minimum deals just to fill out the bench? Only 4 players are currently under contract for next season: Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and last year's rookie, Michaela Timpson. That's it. Everyone else is headed for free agency, and the new salary structure makes bringing the entire group back exponentially more difficult.
But with max salaries expected to be $1 million and the average salary approaching $500,000, maintaining multiple high-level players while preserving roster depth will require careful balancing. Assuming that Mitchell is re-signed, her contract will jump more than 4 times in value from the base salary of $250,000 in 2025, and would account for a higher percentage of the cap as well as in the current.
Here's the temporary reprieve. Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston are still on rookie-scale contracts. That gives Indiana a brief window where they aren't paying supermax money to both franchise cornerstones. But that window is closing quickly. Boston's rookie deal expires after next season. Clark's runs through 2027. Once those extensions activate, each will command a supermax worth 20% of the cap. Think about that calculation. 3 players absorbing 60% of your total salary cap. Kelsey Mitchell at 20%, Clark at 20%, Boston at 20%. That leaves just 40% of the cap to sign 9 additional players. And remember, the average salary under the new CBA is nearing $500,000. You need 9 players. You'll have roughly $2.25 million available. That's about $250,000 per remaining roster spot, significantly below the league average. You can't construct a championship roster with 9 below-average contracts rounding out your depth chart. Structurally, it's impossible.
Offers she receives, but her hustle and shooting has proven to be worth more than an average player. While Cunningham, who has made it clear she hopes to be back with the team, has also expressed desire for a more secure contract. So perhaps running it back won't be as straightforward as it once seemed, as the front office will be tasked with attempting to work out deals that also will allow room for depth.
This is where the timing becomes absolutely critical. The Indiana Fever didn't have Caitlin Clark healthy for a complete playoff run this season. They reached the playoffs, showed real promise, but didn't advance far enough to meet championship expectations. That was supposed to be acceptable because this roster would run it back, build on its chemistry, and make a legitimate push next year. Except now, they can't simply run it back. The new CBA alters everything. The group that was expected to grow together for 3 or 4 seasons may only get 1 more year in this current form. Maybe not even that, if they can't afford to retain both Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham this summer.
Players will surely command supermax salaries, which is the equivalent of 20% of the cap in the proposed deal. Even if that percentage comes down, keeping 3 max players and still having room to field a representative roster appears unlikely, given what we know about how the CBA looks. Wow. So it sounds like, man, that tells you how big of a loss it was to have not had Caitlin Clark last year healthy for this team, because this team's not going to look the same.
So, let's map out the most likely scenario. Indiana Fever prioritize Kelsey Mitchell because you don't allow a max-level guard to walk away for nothing. They match whatever offer Lexi Hull receives, since she's a restricted free agent, and losing a starting-caliber player at 25 would be organizational malpractice. That's 2 major contracts locked in. Sophie Cunningham becomes the odd one out. She's unrestricted. She wants security. Several teams will present multi-year deals with guaranteed money. Indiana simply won't possess the cap flexibility to rival those offers while still maintaining any real roster depth. The fan base loses one of its most beloved players. The rotation loses instant offense off the bench. The locker room loses a veteran presence who understands what winning requires. And for what? Because the new CBA structure forces franchises to choose between star power and depth in ways the previous system never did.
Correct. And then Sophie's going to get something at least slightly above average. Oh, the Indiana Fever may have an issue here. They may have to make a choice here. Because it looks to me like when you peel back all the layers, what this article, what this breakdown tells you is you're not keeping 3 max players. Like beyond this season, the Kelsey, Caitlin, Aaliyah thing is probably, that's not going to happen. You might have 2 somehow, but it's going to be extremely hard to keep everybody together. Wow. I knew that was, look, even without a new CBA, the way things were constructed, I knew if you gave Mitchell a supermax, that salary was good. That salary was going to impact the rest of your roster. Now, I mean,
Here's what makes this situation especially frustrating for Indiana Fever. They did everything correctly. They drafted Aaliyah Boston 2nd overall in 2023, and she immediately developed into an elite two-way center. They tanked strategically, secured the first pick in 2024, and selected a generational talent in Caitlin Clark. They surrounded those franchise cornerstones with complementary pieces like Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham. They hired a capable coaching staff. They constructed a roster that genuinely made sense. And now, the league's economics may force them to dismantle it. Compare this to how the National Basketball Association handles similar scenarios. Yes, NBA teams face luxury tax penalties for exceeding the cap, but there are mechanisms, mid-level exceptions, bird rights, that allow franchises to surpass the cap to retain their own players. The Women's National Basketball Association doesn't offer those same tools. A hard cap is a hard cap. Once you reach $5.65 million, you're finished. No exceptions, no flexibility, no avenue to reward organizational competence by keeping your core intact. The counterargument is that higher salaries across the board benefit players, which is absolutely valid. WNBA athletes have been underpaid for decades, and the new CBA addresses part of that inequity. But the unintended consequence is that teams like Indiana, who drafted well and built chemistry, end up penalized. Meanwhile, franchises that missed on draft picks or mismanaged their rosters receive a reset without consequence. Consider the fan experience, too. You spend an entire season watching this group develop cohesion. You buy Lexi Hull jerseys. You celebrate Sophie Cunningham's clutch threes. You invest emotionally in this roster. Then the league's financial structure forces it to break apart before reaching its ceiling. That's not merely frustrating for the organization. It's devastating for fan engagement and long-term loyalty. And here's the truly insidious part. This isn't only Indiana's issue. Every team that successfully assembles a young core will confront the same dilemma. Las Vegas Aces with Aya Wilson and Kelsey Plum. New York Liberty with Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu. Minnesota Lynx with Nafisa Collier. The new CBA creates a structural incentive to avoid multiple max contracts, meaning elite teams will continually be forced to downgrade their depth simply to remain cap compliant. The irony? The WNBA is experiencing unprecedented growth. Ratings are rising, attendance is surging, sponsorship deals are flowing in. This should be the moment when well-run organizations capitalize on smart decisions and build dynasties. Instead, the financial framework ensures constant roster turnover, preventing the sustained excellence that fosters generational loyalty. What's the solution? If you're Indiana's front office, you're cornered. You can't allow Kelsey Mitchell to walk because replacing a max-level guard in free agency is nearly impossible. You can't lose Lexi Hull because starting caliber wings are scarce. Yet you also can't retain everyone without stripping your depth to the point of filling roster spots with minimum contract players who may not be WNBA caliber. The most plausible outcome is that Sophie Cunningham signs elsewhere. Indiana's bench regresses significantly, and the championship window, once projected to remain wide open for 5 years, begins closing after just 2 seasons. Not because the Fever mismanaged the roster, but because the league's economic structure makes sustained excellence functionally unattainable, and that's the real story. Not merely that Indiana could lose fan-favorite players, but that the new CBA, despite its positive intentions regarding player compensation, creates perverse incentives that penalize competent management and undermine the roster continuity necessary for championship legacies. So here's the question. Is this the right trade-off? Higher salaries league-wide in exchange for constant roster turnover and shortened title windows? Or should the WNBA have implemented mechanisms allowing teams to retain their own players, similar to the NBA's bird rights and mid-level exceptions? Because right now, the Fever appear poised to learn an expensive lesson about the unintended consequences of a hard salary cap in a rapidly expanding league. Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you're a Fever fan, start preparing now. The roster you love may look very different by opening night next season. Subscribe so you don't miss the follow-up when we analyze which teams are actually positioned to benefit from this new CBA structure.